But as I watched that bird, and after I had already sent out the email saying what the title's going to be, I realized there isn't a lot of waiting going on. There's some pretty magnificent things going on. So I kind of look through, and I can always tell when I'm on the right path because things just pop up for me in terms of quotes and stuff like that. I opened my Science of Mind book, and I opened right up to page 33, what ended up being our sacred reading today. And I want to condense that a little bit. Not that Ernest Holmes was a little verbose, but I've shrunk it a little bit.
Never.
Nature seems to await our comprehension of her. The storehouse of nature may be filled with good, but this good is locked to the ignorant. The key to this door is held in the mind of intelligence. Through experience, man learns what is really good and satisfying. And as his intelligence increases and his capacity to understand the subtle laws of nature grows, he will gradually be set free. And as he learns the truth will automatically free him. So I thought it might be appropriate to look at nature and maybe what we can learn from Mother Nature. We spend a lot of time in this philosophy, in this way of thinking, in this teaching, looking at different religions, everything from different practices, all kinds of different things. But how often do we stop and look at nature? So I thought a good place to start might be with that little flock of birds out my window. They happen to be a black-capped chickadee. Black-capped chickadee are common to this area. They're small. It weighs less than a half an ounce. They're really nothing much more than hollow bone, a little bit of flesh, and feathers. But they're an amazing little creature. They, for one thing, they have an amazing ability to lower their own body temperature. Their normal body temperature is about 107. We're, 98.6? Well, they're about 107. But they can drop their body temperature in winter to 50 degrees, to below 60. In fact, they're about 54. They can lower their body temperature to, so they're not as sensitive to that change in temperature. But they have something else that's equally, if not even more amazing. During the late summer and all through the fall, they gather seeds and they go and hide them. And their brain remembers where it is. The hippocampus stores where each of these little caches of seeds are. But it takes a lot of energy to keep that much of their brain engaged and going. So what they do is after they find a particular cache of seeds and consume it, the hippocampus shrinks a little bit. They forget that part of it. And so their brain actually shrinks throughout the winter. Now, what can we learn from this? Well, I don't think I can shrink my brain much further than it already is. So what do? They don't sit and worry about, am I going to run out of hippocampus before the snow leaves? No. Those are the happiest little birds. They're singing out there. They're going. They have a trust. They have an innate trust that their hippocampus is going to outlast the winter. And so they make it through. And I think we can learn from that. We can be happy with what we are and who we are in our situation because we can trust. In the Camino, we call it the Camino will provide. Well, I think that we can say that the universe will provide, and we can trust in that. Well, the next creature that I decided to look at is the frog, the tree frog.
They're amazing.
They are amazing. The first time I encountered a tree frog was up near my cabin, and I could hear them, of course, at night. Ribbit, ribbit, frogs. They sound like a frog. But these are little guys. They're just, a couple inches long. But they put out a big noise. And I always thought that they were down in the swamps and what. They're not. They've got a name tree frog. for a reason. They live in the trees. And yet they camouflage. They get down in the dried leaves and stuff in the autumn. You can't see them. Well, I always wondered, well, they can't hop to Mexico for the winter. What do they do in the winter? They freeze. Solid as a brickbat. The blood in their little veins freezes solid. Every muscle, there is no electrical activity in their little brains at all. They freeze solid.
Wow.
And we get these midwinter thaws. They thaw out a little bit and they kind of look around, and when it gets cold, they freeze again. And they continue to do this over and over. And then finally in the spring, when it comes and it warms up and they stay thawed out overnight, they start food. Their skin is as brittle as you can imagine. They are frozen solid. Now, we do as human beings, as scientists, we've got all the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Man, we've got that side of it figured out. I wonder how much we have some other things of nature that we can learn from. Oh, no, science, particularly NASA, is studying the wood frog. Because they want to figure out how, if we're going to send man on this long, long, long voyage to other stars, maybe we can just freeze that dude and thaw him back out when he gets there. What can we learn from the magnificent wood frog? I thought about this, and what came to me was from What We Believe, Ernest Holmes. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. This thing that we call death is just temporary. That we are immortal. We continue to grow. Just like the wood frog, we awaken when conditions change and we are ready to go on to a new experience. We don't stay frozen, cold, dead forever. These physical bodies may deteriorate. Well, maybe not. But we don't. As individualized expressions of God, we continue to grow exponentially. We can learn from the wood frog. The next animal that I decided to look at was one of my favorite. It's the spruce grouse. Now, spruce grouse, it's a bigger bird. It's about the size of a chicken. And they, too, are pretty amazing. The spruce grouse lays her eggs in the spring and has anywhere from 4 to a dozen chicks. And she takes really good care of her chicks. They run up, and I've seen them over and over, and they'll put their wings out and collect all the little babies underneath her wings. Take the four-wheelers into the cabin, from the railroad tracks back in, it's 12 miles. We could probably see one spruce hen and her chicks a mile going in. So there's a lot of them out there. But you never see them in the winter. Those chicks really grow fast and they get big fast. But then the winter comes. They roost in trees. Now they're called a spruce grouse. They eat spruce needles. There's a lot of calcium in there. And they eat the spruce needles. So they've got the food right where they are. They fluff their feathers up and they roost in trees, and they roost together. And so they come together as a community. So they can warn each other of impending predators. They come together as community and protect one another. Now, that's something that we can certainly learn from. We can learn from the spruce grouse to come together in community. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about our center, is the way we've come together in the various teams to do all the things that are necessary to make this center the success that it is. We've got all those that are in working with our youth right now. We have Judy and a coffee team. That's an example I always use of the high-functioning team. But our choir, we've got dozens of teams going on right here now that all come together. And if you're not a part of a team, fill out the form that Gene passed out and mark on there something that you would like to do, because what a gift it is to be part of one of the teams. Can come together in community. There's another thing about the spruce grouse that I find amazing. They will dive into the snow. And I have seen this, I think there's a slide of it. I have seen this, and I always thought that that was like an eagle or a predator of some type, a big raptor, you know, big bird going after the next one of our little animals, a vole or something. No, they will bury right into the ground. I mean, they auger right in like a Mach 1. They go right in, and then they turn around and they fluff up, and they make a little hut right inside the snow. And they have a little breathe hole, and they can sit in there and stay warm with the insulation of the snow over them. I guess I knew this because I have been on snowshoes out in the middle of the woods and walk along, and you have one of those babies come popping out in front of you. Boy, that'll get your old ticker going, I'll tell you, because they are scary, poof, right up in front of you. So they're very adaptable, and we too can be adaptable. We can come together as community, and we can be adaptable. And our next little animal is the meadow vole.
Wow.
What a guy.
Or girl.
Or girl.
It's a mouse, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a mouse. It's kind of a big mouse. Now, most of the creatures in the north here get to prepare for the winter. They eat and eat and eat, and they put on all the fat that they can. Not the meadow vole. It goes the opposite way. The meadow vole loses weight for the winter. And the reason that they do that is it takes more energy to keep that bigger mass going. And so they lose it, so they expend less energy keeping it warm. Now they build little tunnels and stuff all through underneath the snow, right next to the ground in the dried grass and whatnot, and that's what they eat. And they build these little tunnels, and I've had my dogs, I didn't know what they were doing at the time, but they'll be going through the snow, and all of a sudden they bound down and they dig, 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 dig. They never do catch a mouse. Because those mice are so much faster than they are. And I'm sure the same's true with wolves. However, I did see pictures of wolves catching meadow voles. But they are incredible little guys. They drop their energy level by getting smaller.
It's gym time.
Their little dens that they build inside, 50 degrees. They keep those at 50 degrees. And so they don't venture out very much. And that's how they can do that. They lose the weight, they venture out just enough to stay alive, and they live in their 50-degree dens. Now our last creature is the Pacific salmon. Now, that happens to be a king salmon. You can tell by the black gums. Their amazing trait is that when the water conditions are right, wherever they are in the globe, thousands of miles away, they begin to be pulled, like a magnetic pull, an irresistible urge to return to the very stream that gave them life, to return to the place where they were hatched. And they go back there to lay their eggs and to continue this cycle of life. And they absolutely trust that this is what they're supposed to do. They don't sit and think about it. They don't decide if man has built a dam in the way. They don't think about that. They trust that they're to do what they're pulled and called to do. And yet, we as men don't do that. We always doubt when we're pulled to do things. Oh, I think I'd like to change my job. Oh, I can't do that. That wouldn't be prudent. I'm making a lot of money here. I'm doing a lot of things. Maybe I should be doing something else. Oh, no, I can't do that. Maybe we should trust that intuition a little bit deeper, you know. And nature we call it instinct, but in man we say it's intuition. You know, I think those two are a lot closer than we sometimes think. So I think that there are a lot of things that we can learn from nature. We can learn to trust. We can learn to count on our intuition. I think that we can be innovative. We can do all of the kinds of things that we need to do, but we can be open to the possibility that there is a power in the universe that's far greater than we are, and it's there for us. It's not there to punish us. It's not there to beat us up. It's there to support us in every way that we can. My final quote today, this comes from an interview. It was done by a guy by the name of John Saracino, and he was interviewing Jim Lovell. Jim Lovell, if you recall, was one of the astronauts. He was on Apollo 8, which was the first one that orbited the moon, actually saw the backside of the moon. And then he was on the Apollo 13, the one that they made the movie about, and all that thrilling experience that he did. And the interviewer, John Saracino, asked him about what it was like. It was on the 50th anniversary of Apollo 8, 50 years ago.
Wow.
And Jim Lovell, who is now over 90, talked about the profound moment when he was on Apollo 8 and they came out from behind the moon and for the first time looked at Earth. And he said, I could put my thumb up to the glass of the window and look through it, and I could cover the Earth with my thumb. And I realized how insignificant we are in the universe. The interview asked him if he had any changes because of that. And he said, there is an old saying, I hope to go to heaven when I die. Suddenly it dawned on me that we went to heaven when we were born. We arrived on a planet that had the right amount of mass to have the gravity to contain water and an atmosphere, just at the proper distance from a star. It appeared to me that God had given mankind sort of a stage to perform on. I guess how that play will turn out is up to us. And I think we might be wise to learn from our fellow inhabitants on this magnificent planet that we call Earth. And so it is with an awareness of that power, that presence, that infinite creative force that we call God, that I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in simply knowing that that power, that presence is indeed with and within each and every one of us at every moment. And as we go through this thing called life and we bump into the corners and we do things wrong and we mess everything up, there is indeed a power that is greater than we are. And that power is indeed cheering us on at every moment. It is doing everything that it can to make us successful in this thing called life. And so as we experience these things that we classify as lack or limitation or dis-ease or any of the other things that we run into in life, we can rest assured that above all of everything, there is love. The absolute love of the divine for each and every one of us. And so we just simply give thanks. We give thanks for this magnificent globe that we live upon. We give thanks for the fellow creatures that we can learn from. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God. And it is only up to us now to step back, do the best we can, and trust that the highest good is unfolding. So we let it go, we let it be, and so it is.